Greetings, eldest. Do you hear the distant thunder? The time has come. The time to settle everything once and for all.
Words. How little value we attach to them, and how much they truly mean. But I've grown tired of words and prophecies. I will no longer predict chaos and death. Instead, I will show them to you, myself.
Oh yes, the time has come! The time of fate and curses!
Their life ends here! Strike my masterpiece! This will hurt. Your death awaits.
You don't seem to like my curses! Maybe you like the jokes better?
Ah, a test of my abilities.
Do it. We shall overcome.
The time for laughter is past. It's the hour of hunting and chaos.
time for masks is over. You risk challenging an eldest, and I accept the challenge. You will fight not a mere embodiment, but my true essence. This is my essence. I don't need magic or servile monsters to destroy you. Words are enough. Yes, words. I once told you, words spoken in the right time and place possess the power of a storm. You lightheartedly answer that you know what your power and essence are. The desire to help people whose grief touches you. I remember your answer. The world remembers it too. Your answer, your heart, essence. Now, cursed king, I'm taking this part of your soul, as I took away Nerissa's ability to love. What you called your essence is yours no more. Let us continue. We both wear the crown. But what do you want? A meager patch of land, a few thousand souls? My dominion is chaos and magic, madness and deceit. Your power is nothing compared to mine. And that is why you are helpless before me. You will take my every blow as a divine punishment, as something imminent. I'm curious what you think of me, cursed king. Do you see me as a villain or a simple joker? In truth, well, never be able to conceive of the truth. Being an eldest means being one of the many strings that hold the world in place. Being an eldest means being such a vast and self-sufficient value that one's equals become strangers and one's inferiors are entirely insignificant. I am an eldest. Laughing, guile, transformation. That's what I am. Being what I am, I will let you feel a modicum of my loneliness. I will take away your pillar of strength. Good. You can play with words. Let us see if you can withstand the heat of my fire.
Enemy approaching. This will hurt. Let's try this one.
I don't remember sensing it for a dozen millennia. But what's next? How will you end this story? Listen, I know a good ending. Elegant and refined. The hero defeats a deity in battle. Impressed, it grants the victor power and immortality. The hero enters the chambers of the deity to become his champion and herald. Eternal, powerful, equally glorified both in the first world and in Galarian. His kingdom healed from its wounds and flourished under the rule of the immortal champion. A beautiful ending, isn't it? And this legend is yours for the asking.
This is not your hour, eldest. You've tormented us enough for your cruel entertainments.
You seem so confident, Dinosaur. I'm intrigued. What is it that you and your chosen are planning to do with an immortal deity? What power do you have that I do not?
Look into the eyes of your lost image, Lantern King. Look at what you once were, and listen to my words. You made me your puppet, but I have won my freedom. You stole the essence of my soul, but now it is returned. You cursed me, but I do not accept this curse. I reject the path you cut for me. I will not be what you would make me. I fear no punishment. I will not bow, and I will not turn back. I do not seek your forgiveness.
I feel the fire in these words. Hot and liberating. An eternity of sacrifice. Who would have thought?
That's how the story ended. The Lantern King vanished without a trace, and we never heard from him again. Nyrissa helped return the kingdom to Galarian and followed her beloved there. After celebrating the victory with great fanfare, everyone began work on restoration efforts. Nyrissa helped the king in every way possible, and she quickly came to be loved across the country. No one would have thought that this kind nymph was a former villain, so recently guilty of causing all those afflictions. The kingdom built by our hero became an example for all its neighbors. What else would you expect? The stolen lands became the only place where the citizens sincerely toast the health of their ruler. The citizens lived trouble-free, and taxes made it to the treasury without losses. A powerful army guards the peace. Exploration of magic is on par. The temples are flooded with their congregations. And, most importantly, our cultural contributions are at least the equal of Absalom. The king did the right thing, leaning on the richest citizens of the stolen lands in his ruling. Thanks to their many trade relations, money floods into the kingdom, and the fact that the private mercenary armies bought with the merchants' money continue to gain power can still be overlooked. The king's subjects praise his generosity, while citizens of neighboring lands groan from crippling taxes. Citizens of the stolen lands have it pretty good. Truth be told, the treasury isn't always capable of paying the royal bills. And the throne room's adornments are clearly decaying. But sometimes you have to buy the people's love. Literally. Who'd have thought that some tiny barony founded in the stolen lands by an adventurer would become a real kingdom, playing a prominent part in world politics? Of course, not everyone likes the proactive stance of this young, bold state, but the fact of the matter is, they can't afford to ignore the king and his diplomats. The king became a true patron of fine crafts. Over time, the castle treasury filled with wonderful gifts from the best masters in the area. Armor, weapons, even magical artifacts, and the collection is still growing. The feud between Brevois North and South, which had been smoldering for ages, finally sparked the fires of civil war. Our troops lent aid to the forces of Restov, led by Sword Lord Jamandi Aldori. After several bloody battles, House Sertova was forced to recognize Restov's independence. The victory came at a high price, but we have no more loyal ally than once more free Rostland. Kasil Aldori, who lost an arm during the war, became a permanent ambassador of Rostland at our court. Led by careful, level-headed Dugoth, the Tiger Lord's tribe reunited and started to lick the wounds left by the erratic Armagh. Little by little, they once again became one of the strongest mercenary armies in the region. Dugoth always assured our king of his friendship, but the king always stayed on his toes, understanding that anything could happen when that old fox is around. Pitax almost returned to its former state, a joyful city filled with beers of dubious quality and deals of questionable legality. The old trade houses lost the crown, but they retrieved the property Iravetti had taken from them. Soon, Pitax became almost like a second capital in the kingdom, a thriving city through which rivers of money from across the region ran. Governor Mosconi dips into this stream with both hands, of course, but the king looks the other way, since he's loyal and he governs the city well. Self-administration turned the Academy of the Arts into a strange place. The court sycophants were quickly ousted. It turned out they weren't welcome when there wasn't someone like Iravetti constantly ordering odes to themselves. In their place came a motley, unpredictable crowd. Eccentrics, fashionable authors of popular prints and cheap novels, charlatans, scribblers with delusions of grandeur, as many as 3 feuding experimental theaters, and even a few truly unappreciated geniuses. The Academy is not only highly esteemed, there's no place like it, even in Absalom. Trolls and kobolds, 2 of the most savage native peoples living in the Gnarl Marches, were completely exterminated in the region. The forest paths became much safer, and the peasants' cattle have stopped going missing. After enduring so many storms and troubles, Varnhold eventually turned into a real city. Daring settlers decided to conquer the vast, wild expanses of Dunsword, and despite all odds, they succeeded. The modest colony that almost vanished at the hands of an ancient lich turned everything around to become a thriving city with lively river trading. Magar Varn didn't stay at the court for long. Having saved some seed money, he left service and organized a new Varnling host together with his general. And this new party of mercenaries has already helped our kingdom more than a few times. Agay, the Spriggan leader, learned a valuable lesson after surviving his meeting with the king and even regaining his tribe's home. Don't try to occupy seemingly empty settlements anymore. Instead, the Spriggans settled across Dunsword's wild borderlands and proclaimed it as their domain. Keeping the peace in a situation like that seems like the stuff of dreams, as evidenced by the occasional lost patrols and stolen cattle. Peace reigns in the caves beneath the old sycamore. The kobolds and mites continue to explore the depths and learn simple crafts from each other. Rumor has it, the first mite-kobold wedding even happened not long ago. That said, settlers still aren't rushing to build new homes in the area. Some kind souls even put up warning signs along the roads. Beware, traveler. Steer clear of the old sycamore. Another inscription soon appeared over the sign though. No keep going treasure ahead honest. Due to tumult on both sides of the border, Oleg's trading post gradually fell into desolation, regretfully leaving its walls, for which so much blood had been shed. Oleg and Svetlana left the backcountry that was so dear to their hearts and returned to the noise of the big city. Making sure her sister was safe, the former bandit Kressel traveled south. Her trail went cold somewhere in Absalom's docks. They say she changed her name again and now serves on a trade ship, hiding from old acquaintances. Jod and Keston, after surviving the bloom, remained loyal to the king they followed through thick and thin, and they continue to serve as court advisors to this day. The austere priest and the gloomy warrior regularly argue over the proper way to govern the state, as well as which of the two rulers should hear out first. Some things never change. Keston Gares took a post as chief of the kingdom's guard. The former heir to a noble family never returned to Brevoy, severing all ties to his kin. However, a few years after the victory over the First World, a girl arrived from Brevoy and soon married Keston. They say Keston started smiling a lot more after that. Jod remained loyal to the king to the end of his days, healing the sick and generously sharing his austere wisdom with anyone who wished to hear it, and some who didn't. Having fulfilled his duty to the ruler, Erastel's priest peacefully departed this world, surrounded by friends and disciples. Tisana, Lamashtu's priestess, didn't remain in the king's service for long. One night, she just disappeared from the castle and set off for the kingdom's borders, preaching to anyone who would listen and granting the needy the blessing of the Mother of Monsters. Having participated in Lamashtu's ritual, Olika gave birth to a strong and healthy baby. Sadly, the child grew into an unruly and violent adolescent. Having maimed a peer at just 10 years of age, the boy escaped to the Gnarl Marches, fleeing the rage of a mob that tore his mother to pieces instead. No one knows what happened to the lad, but legends of Lamashtu's child, who sometimes kills lost travelers and sometimes leads them to safety, are passed on by word of mouth throughout the area. Blindheart became a loyal ally and trade partner of the kingdom, and Darvin himself had been seen as a frequent guest in the capital. The elegant monarch of the neighboring kingdom has broken many hearts at court. After his visits, many young guards and servants have been seen staring through windows, sighing wistfully about something. The Fae took a fancy to the kingdom, feeling totally at home here. They often play various pranks, but they never do any serious harm. Falcos and Teresia managed to restore the magic forest. Once freed of the anger of the Scythe Tree, people returned to the abandoned village, and it became a haven of friendship between the Fae and ordinary people, just like old times. The lizard folk of the Longtail tribe returned to live on the shores of Candlemere, but they couldn't return to their ancient way of life. Living alongside people, the lizard folk adopted their behaviors, habits, and even religion. More and more of the Longtail tribe pray not to the spirits of their ancestors, but to Erastil or Gorum. They even began to forget their original language. I hope someone writes down their songs and legends before they all sink into oblivion. The goblins who put so much effort into preserving the king's lands obviously felt that gave them the right to do whatever they wanted in the kingdom. Travelers are careful to move in groups when they can, and any peasants who spot at least one particularly toothy stranger immediately raise the alarm. For if you see one goblin, there's likely a whole gang. A delegation of wizards from Absalom and other areas appeared in the kingdom one day, asking for permission to examine the lair of the Lich Farneris the Thoughtful. After completing their research, the wizards spent a long time thanking the king for freeing the world of that monster. In their opinion, he'd been capable of causing the end of the world, maybe even 2 worlds. The Sweet Teeth departed on a journey, hoping to see as many wonders as possible of this world and others. They keep sending us news from every corner of the map. Their bright painted wagon, drawn by a bull mastodon, crisscrosses Golarion, somehow appearing in the center of one incredible story after another. Evindra settled down in the Tuskwater and visits the capital often. She became a friend to the people of the kingdom, helping them and teaching them how to treat the lake life with care. Parents allow their children to swim in the Tuskwater at any time, day or night, secure in the knowledge that she'll look out for them. After Nyrissa's curse was lifted, the maimed face of the last defaced sister began healing, little by little. She still keeps her distance from people, but she's always glad to see the king. After the victory, the storyteller abandoned his affairs and began spending a lot of time alone in contemplation. He eventually bid farewell to the king and left his lands. But I suspect the inhabitants of Golarion haven't heard the last of this mysterious traveler, for his own story is hardly finished. The ancient artifacts gathered by the king built the foundation of a museum collection that has become famous even in far-off Absalom. Amiri remained a pariah to her native tribe, but she stayed close friends with Nylak, who ruled the Six Bears wisely and taught them to survive in the unfamiliar plains and cities. The restless barbarian would often travel for long stretches of time, but sooner or later she would always return to her old friends, bragging about new scars and recounting new feats, many of which Nylak immortalized in song. Valerie stayed to serve the king, and to this day she continues to be a muse to many people. Not just bards and admirers, but to warriors as well. Honest and resilient, Valerie is not just famous for her feats in battle, but also for her patience and kindness, which she says the king helped her discover within herself. Harren became famous, respected by dwarves throughout our kingdom as well as our neighbors, even as far as the Five Kings Mountains. He's often been asked to help out or teach others, and he's never denied anyone, despite his grumbling. Some people even listen to his preaching. Lucky for us, there's a lot less howling about the end of the world now, and more wise words of moderation and humility. Not all of his disciples turned to Grotus, but everyone took away something useful from his teachings. Jaethal spent some time at the king's court, but she then left to do whatever it was her new goddess required. She must have become a great inquisitor for Pharasma, as no one would know the ways of the undead and Urgathoa's cultists as well as a former undead cultist would. She was also seen in the company of Salim Godafar. It's unlikely the two became friends, being so different from one another, but it's a known fact that they worked together. Octavia didn't stay still for very long. Soon, she and Reg went to Numeria and started a huge slave rebellion there. They didn't manage to destroy the Technic League, but to this day, slaves speak their names with admiration, and slavers with terror. Over the course of their journey, the two grew as close as ever, leaving their quarrels and resentments behind. After returning from Numeria, Octavia settled in her mother's house and became the king's advisor and loyal companion. Rigangar left for Numeria with Octavia to start a slave rebellion. Over the journey, he really matured and learned to understand others, as well as how to control his anger. After he returned, he took a position in the king's court. Being both formidable and charming, he inspired fear in the hearts of some and lust in others. There are even some rumors that he almost talked Octavia into marrying him, and possibly even continuing the Della Fiorni line. Once the war was over, Tristan kept his promise to Sarenrae. In the middle of celebrating the king's victory, the priest suddenly disappeared in a flash of light, vanishing forever. I hope Sarenrae didn't take the Movonic Deva's memory, so her servant might still remember us and the stolen lands. Or if she did, I hope he was at least able to forget everything about the lands in which he endured so much suffering. After the war ended, Ekin hung up his bow on the wall and traded the path of the ranger in for the craft of the carpenter. It may not be the most heroic ending to a tragic story like his, but as Torag is my witness, Ekin's happy with it, as is Alina, who became his wife and is bearing his child. Any baby born into this family will be pretty lucky, since the king himself still visits his old friend and will likely become the child's patron. Jubilost returned to the life of a traveling explorer, frequently visiting his favorite kingdom. He said so himself. His famous work studying the First World all opened with a dedication to his longtime companion, the king. Another name was also mentioned, 2Z, my guide and inspiration. Admirers would ask Jubilost many times about this mystery lady, but he would only chuckle, hitch his knapsack on his shoulder, and return to storm the vast expanses of the First World once again. As for Knock Knock, apologies, I mean Hero Knock Knock, he continued his questionably heroic efforts in the Stolen Lands. Despite whatever mess he fell into, no matter the danger he leapt into, he always seemed to scrape through just a little better off than before. Like true heroes, he simply never gave up, struggling on and meeting the challenge of each new day with a spirit that no mishap or misfortune could ever quell. The slightly inaccurate statue of him and the king still stands in the square to this day. The two figures side by side. I've always felt that, while the heights may be a bit off, let's say, it accurately reflects the size and spirit of the goblin hero who'd been nurtured by the teachings of his king. Kalika remained in the kingdom, though her desire to witness the world's wonders keeps driving her to take long journeys. But when she is home, she spends much of her spare time with her sister. They don't quarrel anymore, and have stopped dragging each other into trouble. Canera settled down in the capital and became a very busy entrepreneur. It seems as though every hour is planned, meeting with rich merchants or inventors whose work she's promoting. But on her way home, she never fails to stop at the market to personally buy some sweets for her sister. Between Canera's business sense and Kalika's charm, they founded and successfully run not one, but 3 organizations. A trading house, a shelter for tiefling children, and a school of magic devoted to Nethys. Nyrissa and her beloved king live happily together, setting up the kingdom hand in hand. Their union somehow linked the unruliness of the First World with the order of material plane. Nyrissa managed to bring forth the daring vision for which she had once been cursed, the creation of her dream country. Our kingdom is now a flourishing land, taking the best of both wild nature and structured civilization, and our capital is an amazing garden city, which visitors from all over Golarion come to see. As for myself, the author of this book, Lindsay, who never chose a pretty nickname, I'm still here, inside my creation within the Capital Library. I live just like I always dreamed, surrounded by people and books, and not a day goes by without someone turning my pages. My story inspired many others to take up the quill. My readers have written many fierce books, articles, and pamphlets, flinging truth in the faces of tyrants. What more could I dream of? I hope, oh honored reader, that this story offered you some daring ideas, or at least some entertainment. In any case, it's time to set the final period.